Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all join us today on this beautiful sunny day. My name is Jo Horsley and I'm from Responsible Cafes. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm meeting you here today on the traditional lands of the Camaragal people, and I'd like to pay my respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. So today I'm taking the reins from Jane, and we're going to finish up our Stronger Together Cafe Summit by delving into how to share your purpose and message with your community. So we spent the last 4 sessions delving into the why, hearing from great speakers and brands who are working really hard to find solutions to the environmental issues that we're all facing. But now we're ready to take action. So we will be hearing more about the Responsible Cafes movement and how we can support you to transition away from generating unnecessary waste and carbon emissions. But we'll also be speaking to the wonderful sustainability expert Jane Stewart on how small businesses can start creating plans and activating them. And then we're going to be speaking to Kath Leach, who is a designer that specializes in using design to create positive impact and behavior change. And she also helped launch the Responsible Cafe movement many years ago. So that's great to have her here still. And lastly, the team from the Bravery PR will be presenting some great tips and tricks on how to build your positive change-making message and how to activate it via social media and local PR. And then we'll wrap everything up with a little panel discussion. So there's loads to get through today. So first up, I'm going to be interviewing our very own Jane Stewart, who's been working tirelessly with me over the last few months to create this amazing series of online events. Jane has been working in the field of business sustainability for over 20 years with businesses, government, teachers, students, and the broader community on a range of sustainability projects. She's presented her ideas at the White House in Washington, the West End of London, and many conferences around the USA and Australia. Jane has led a global sustainability education program for kids funded by big businesses around the world, and more recently has been working with small to medium enterprises to help them embed sustainability thinking into their everyday activity. So we're really lucky to have her been working on this online summit with us, but it's also great to get a little insight into the work that she's doing today. So Jane, hi.
Hi there, how are you? Nice to be at the receiving and being interviewed, actually.
Yeah, less stress with all the technology stuff, I know.
That's right, you can have all that today.
Thank you, very kind.
Yeah.
So from your experience, can you share some insights into why small businesses like cafes need to incorporate these concepts around sustainability into their business plans?
Sure, it's a good question. And I suppose when I reflected upon this, over my 20 years, when I first started with working in sort of business sustainability, it was really a matter of corporate social responsibility was seen as like an add-on. It wasn't really a key activity that business is involved in. They saw it more of a marketing activity, a way to sort of get some good leverage and some good building with their sort of customers, getting some good sort of value with them, you know. But I suppose over the years, this has really changed now. And now business today really big business today really knows that they have to be environmentally sustainable, they have to be socially responsible, as well as being economically profitable. And that's sort of how they see it. It's not an add-on anymore. It's absolutely a strategic part of what they do. And I think the biggest key factor that sort of that's moved this is the fact that consumers' expectations are changing. And we'll hear about this more later from our PR sort of agency too. But consumers today really want to know where their products come from. They want to know that the things that they're consuming haven't harmed, you know, anybody or destroyed the planet along the way, you know. And I think COVID has made that even stronger, you know. With COVID, we've seen global supply chains sort of really disrupted, and that's really made us sort of understand how connected we are to what we consume. And I think that businesses who consume and procure things really understand that if they have a secure supply chain, it really helps their business. So I think now more than ever, you know, our message that we've been saying is that cafes really need to look at their operations and think about how they can be more responsible and more sustainable, not just because it's good for the customers, but because it's good for business as well.
And so during your time researching for the summit and speaking to cafes on your journey, what kind of innovations did you see working in terms of social impact or environmental actions?
Well, before we get there, it's really important that you have an idea of how you implement some changes in your cafe. And looking at processes is really important because you set some steps around how you might do that. And we've started to talk about that through the summit, but it's a 5-step process, and I call it a cycle of innovation. And what that involves is, first, it's around visioning, it's around planning, it's around setting up, it's around engaging, and it's around adapting. So whether you're implementing a small change or a big change, it's really important that you have that innovation cycle in mind. So, for instance, say, for instance, you had a cafe that was wanting to look at their procurement, and say they have a vision that they want to procure everything within a 50-kilometre radius, or perhaps they want everything to be organic. The first thing they should do is really think about their vision and put it out there. This is sort of what we want to do, you know. Then they really need to plan for that, you know. So they need to think about, okay, if we're going to say buy everything within a local sort of radius, let's start looking at who's around, you know, who are the suppliers, what are they supplying, what can I get from them, and maybe start creating a preferred provider list. The next step is really setting up. And I know that sounds obvious, but working with small businesses, I know that the better you set up a system or a process, the easier it is for your staff to then follow it. So if you're setting up, you're wanting to get your all your produce from local producers, then ring them up, you know, and find out, you know, what is it that they sell? What's the packaging that it comes in? Can you start to have that conversation already around getting better packaging, reusing the packaging? What's seasonal? When's it coming? What size do you have to order? Really start to tease out your relationship and write it all down, because the better you set up your supply chains, the better you set up your relationships, the easier it is for your staff to then implement that. So the next step then is engaging your staff to really get involved. So once you've set your vision, you've planned, and you've got it all set up, then you really need your staff to help engage and to roll it out. Once you've been implementing it for a while, it's really important that you have a look, review it, and adapt it. So then you'd sort of try and set bigger challenges and do more and more and more, you know. So that's the process. And I suppose a good sort of example for us to use is as you know, we've done some really great interviews with cafes across Australia. And one great example was the Moon Rabbit Cafe here in Preston. So what they did is they set a vision to have as little environmental impact as possible. So they started with just one simple activity, and that was around cups. So they set up a cup program, they set up a mug library, they invited their customers to join in, and then they even joined a local council program as well. So they did that. They've sort of now saying that they've been able to eliminate 45,000 disposable cups from landfill, which is huge, you know. But when I spoke to Sam, the manager there, she said that as well as setting up and starting with small steps, she also then really were challenging the staff, and they got on board, and they really started with this innovation cycle, so that they were visioning extra things and extra activities, and that just led to more and more and more. And so when you look at that cafe example, if you go and look at the case study, they're doing wonderful things now across all the different sort of actions that we're talking about. But it started with small steps. It started with that innovative thinking, and now everybody's involved and everybody's doing it.
And that process that you quickly went through, we've actually really kind of padded out more in our playbooks, haven't we? So it's definitely worth having a look at those if you're a cafe starting out on this journey. So thank you so much, Jane. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Look, just I suppose, please do look at all our cafe examples, because they have almost a summary. We've taken the best bit out of all the cafes that we interviewed, and that we've really tried to show you examples across our 5 pillars, our 5 Ps, if you remember, which was purpose, performance, procurement, planet, and people. And these are fantastic examples, fantastic, really tangible, simple things that some of them are doing. So I encourage you to all to go and have a look at that.
Yeah, check out the website. Good
right.
Time for a plug. Thank you, Jane. I'm going to move on. We could, you and I have been discussing this for days, so we're going to move on now and speak to the wonderful Kath, who is the founder and creative director of Catfish Creative, a design agency that is dedicated to all things ocean protection and creating positive impact and behavior change through the power of design. She believes now more than ever that we need to use creative design and design thinking to solve the complex challenges of our ever-expanding world. We need ideas and creativity, and we need to do. She was one of the original founders of Responsible Cafes and behind the iconic Responsible Cafes poster that is seen in many cafes across the world today. Kath, are you there? There she is with her beautiful
Hello.
hello. Kath, can you tell us a little bit about how and why Responsible Cafe started and how you got involved?
So it actually emerged out of Responsible Runners, which was a group that met on Bondi Beach every Sunday, and concerned citizens catching up to pick up the litter after a big weekend of people coming down the beach. And I guess what they kept finding was there was lots of bottles. It was like mostly beverage related stuff: straws, bottles, lids, coffee cups, and bottle lids and coffee cup lids. And they were like, well, okay, there's something we can do here. We can go, we know these coffee cups and these lids are likely not washing in from the ocean. They're probably coming onto the beach with people from local cafes. Let's speak to the local cafes and work out if there's a way we can stop them getting here. And so it was 3 particular cafes. It was Funky Pies. They used to provide responsible runners with a pie after their run. And so they were one of the first cafes. There was also Organic Republic and Gertrude and Alice. So they were the 3 first Bondi cafes that agreed it would be a great idea to give a discount on reusables so that we could just start to see people reusing instead of bringing their disposables down the beach. And of course, it's grown to a lot more than 3 now.
Yeah, what were your expectations at the start when you started putting this all together? Did you think, oh, we're creating this, big strategic movement with 5,000 aim of 5,000 cafes, or was it just like, let's see what happens?
It's just one of those grassroots things. Just to go back to the fact that I'm a designer. So I was doing the runs with Justin Bonsey at the time, and my future husband was involved in the movement. I didn't find out until probably a few years in. And so that's wonderful. But I was doing, Justin would send me all the photos of the runs. I would put the branding, which I designed on it, with the little guy running along the beach with a piece of litter. And so it was really that I followed that brand through to the cafes when we decided, we've got 3 cafes, let's make that a brand too. And had the little guy with his cup. So yeah, that's how I came in as a designer, but also as a member of it. And I guess your question, what was your question again? What were my expectations?
The expectations of it, really.
I guess I just loved that there was something emerging from something else. And I just liked the idea that you can have this sort of agile nature of something that can go, okay, what does the world need and what can we do? So I'm not really a massive thinker about things because I get really overwhelmed. So with the here and now, it's just like, this is something cool we can do locally and we can do it well. And it did start growing. And the Responsible Runners movement is still going. People are still going down to the beach on Sundays. So it's kind of amazing. I didn't have big dreams, but here we are.
Here you are. And so you've worked on so many different movements and campaigns over the years. Why are you still so passionate about what Responsible Cafes is and what it stands for?
Well, I do lots of anything to do with ocean conservation. I'm really passionate about. I just feel like Responsible Cafes is one of those things that's like, it's such a simple thing. And I don't necessarily think that, it's the answer to everything. It's one small thing. It's kind of like the coffee cup is a gateway drug to understanding our disposable linear way of living. And so in order to solve those problems, you've got to have something that you come in on. And I think it's such an accessible thing for people because people can see you're using a reusable cup, right? If you're composting, no one knows unless you wear an I compost t-shirt.
I've got one.
Carry food waste around in your hands. You don't do that. So I like having a coffee cup, and I think it's really accessible for people. And I think look at it now. Look how many more people you see using reusable keep cups, Husky cups, Green Caffeine, all of these different brands that people are using now. It's amazing. And so I just feel like it's something that people can run with, but they're seen doing it. So, as humans, we like to be seen doing a good thing.
And then, so what's your advice to cafes out there trying to engage the community around waste and behavior change? Because it's not easy. It's, I know, you have a little, tell me what you think and I can add my bit.
Oh yeah, I guess it's the same as design. It's like, be bright, be positive and lead the way. I think you've actually got to be quite behind it. I think if you're only like half-heartedly doing it because you think you should, because you think sustainability is one of those things you should do as a business, I don't know if you're on the right tracks. I really feel like you have to live and breathe this. This is our future. Like, this is the way we have to go. We don't have a choice. So it's like, get on and just own it. And I think the best way of, and I'm sure Bravery will talk about this in terms of having this passion. It's like, this is the change we're all part of, and we can play our part in that. But it's also about being positive about that messaging. So it's like, we're on this train, we're doing this. And as Adam Carr said last week on the summit, it's like there are these life cycle analyses of things that you can do that you realize, right, this is making a big impact. This is also something we can do maybe around our milks or our coffee, but even just talking to your customers and saying, this is a path we're on, come with us. And just having that, so, you know, things are bright, positive, and outcomes focused and solutions focused, and put some stats in there about how you're helping and how you're part of this big movement.
Yeah, I'm going to quickly share my screen just to show people some of the great examples of how the poster's been used. But, you know, you designed that poster. And I think what's really important to get across now is that we've got all these great resources, but you don't have to necessarily use them. You know, they're there for you to use. And obviously the power of having the Responsible Cafes logo is that we're part of a network, and you can fly to WA or Queensland and you recognize that poster, and then you know that you're welcome there with your own cup. But, you know, we do see a lot of cafes who just go and make their own, and great, fantastic. Like, you know, when we don't own this space, we want everyone to be creative and to use their creativity. I love this one on the right here, Kath, of someone's made their own poster. So cute.
Remember, it was someone's son, and we made a little thank you drawing to send back because we were so stoked for that. Yeah, so cool. Beautiful. And so I personally, because I'm so familiar with this little poster, whenever I see a little blue poster anywhere I go in Australia, as I say, it could be on the other side of Australia. This one I particularly loved. I was up in Tweed Heads, and I walked in, I was like, oh, that looks like our brand. I'm like, oh, it is our branding. They've just done their own thing with it. Brilliant. And they were like, we just wanted to get straight on and do it, so we just printed our own out. I think there's like 50 or 60 cents there. But yeah, it's like, whenever I see these, I get enthused, and customers do too, because people who are using this system love to see the little blue poster. But it could be, yeah, a hand-drawn poster, or it could be other initiatives like this one here, talking about not saving dairies. Bold move. That was several years ago now. But yeah, just own it, enjoy it, create it in your own way. And, you know, Responsible Cafes is there to put you on the literal map so people can find you in the first place. Brilliant.
Thank you so much for your input, and we'll bring you back to the panel later, potatoes. Thank you. Handing over to you, Jane.
Well, now I think I'm interviewing you, Jo.
Yes.
So I suppose now we've heard from Kath, who is one of the originators of Responsible Cafes, but now that you're actually running it these days and sort of very involved in the day-to-day, can you tell us a little bit more about how you can help cafes measure their impact?
Yeah, so Jane, as you know, Responsible Cafes took a real blow last year due to COVID-19, and many people were really scared to use their reusable. What we saw was a real community dance where cafes didn't want to offend the community by accepting reusables anymore, and the community didn't want to offend cafes by bringing in their reusables. So that gave me a real, a bit of a wake-up call to kind of go back to the drawing board and look really hard at the platform that we'd created and think about if it's still relevant to the community, that we're the landscape of COVID and also the environmental issues that we're facing, and is it relevant? And the answer really was no. I think we can do more. So what we were not doing was incorporating all the other amazing waste saving initiatives that cafes were doing. And so since we started, there are so many other great ways that cafes can encourage reusables. So for instance, there are amazing cup swap systems like Husky Cup. There's cafe libraries. So that's where you can just go buy a bunch of old cups or get donated a bunch of old cups and then just put them in a basket and people can just take them away with them and bring them back. There's your cup loyalty system where, you know, maybe they get an extra stamp after using their reusable 10 times. There's the discount model, which we currently, you know, that's how we started. And then there's the levy, and that's what's going off really in Europe. So where you actually pay for a disposable cup. So you're actually paying for the convenience of using it that. And we thought, why don't we start incorporating that into the map? And then why stop there? So we decided to really build the platform out so cafes can log into their own dashboard and tick off all the other great waste-saving things that they're doing. I'm just going to show you a quick video now to demonstrate some of those, some of that. Oh, I'm just going to, what have I done? Open up my screen. Oh, crumbs, I've lost it. I knew this was good. We talked about this, Jane, didn't we?
That's okay. So it'll be in your internet browser.
Yeah, I'm gonna, yeah, I'll
Open
find
it.
it for you. Sorry. But yeah, we made this little video recently to demonstrate what the system is and how it works. And we basically build kind of like a rating system for cafes, and they can by ticking off all of their actions, they can. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen with you. There we go. And you'll recognize the voiceover on this one.
Being responsible doesn't have to be boring. In fact, it's a great way to save operating costs, reduce waste, and attract new customers. At Responsible Cafes, we have created the world's first environmental cafe rating system, and we need you to help spread the responsible love. It's simple. If you're a cafe owner, you can create an account for free and share all the great waste-saving measures that you're taking, and flaming cappuccinos, you're given a coffee bean rating. Ratings range from 1 bean to 5 beans, and then gold bean cafes are simply beautiful. We also give you access to great posters and guides to help you on your responsible journey. On the other hand, if you're a coffee-loving keen bean, you can visit our digital map and search for cafes rated in your area. So jump online today and be a part of the responsible revolution.
Right, so we got there in the end. Yeah, so that's basically what we launched at the end of last year. And so yeah, that's what we were working really hard on at COVID. And so then now our job is to really try and engage cafes to start uploading that, updating that information. And what we've done as well is we've created a bunch of new guides and posters to really incorporate some of those actions. So for instance, if a cafe is giving free water refills, they can tick it off in their dashboard. And then we've got a poster to then demonstrate that they are giving free water refills. And it's going really well. I mean, the feedback's been great. Obviously, technology can sometimes catch up on us, like I'm showing today, and you know we're constantly trying to update it. But I think the important thing as well is to note that we are here and we're really open to hearing from the cafe community about what they need. So for instance, a bunch of cafes in WA really wanted to get the message out there that compostables, that they're giving away free coffee grinds. So, you know, that week we were like, right, let's make them a poster. We sent it out to all of those cafes, and we then started seeing on our social media that they were then sharing that poster and sharing that their compost, that they got sacks of coffee grinds ready to go away to be picked up by the community. So it's very much an organic approach, because we are still very much a grassroots community group. You know, it might look from the website that we're kind of doing all this great stuff, but we really are quite a small team of like volunteers, and we're really trying to push the needle on some of these things. But we also need input from what the community needs from us. So we're here ready to take briefs. Let us know.
Thanks, Jo. That's great. And I've certainly personally sort of seen, you know, I've seen how hard you work across it all, and then all the resources that you've made, and the back end, the dashboard, the membership dashboard is really fantastic now. And so I encourage everybody who's a cafe to sign up to be a member as well. So good on you. Well done. Keep going. But we'll keep moving because we've got a lot to fit in. We still need to speak to our next presenter, and that's Claire Maloney. She's the founder of a purpose-led PR agency called The Bravery. Since 2012, they've been working with large and small corporate grassroots organisations like the Responsible Cafes to help them grow their impact and tell their story in an authentic way. They recently led a large research paper called The Power and the Passion, and to help us understand what Australians are really concerned about. So today, Claire is going to share some of the findings from the report, and also share some of her PR wisdom for tips and tricks for help cafes tell their story. So hello, Claire, over to you.
Hello. Can you see this?
Yes, all good.
Excellent. Okay, also just as further context, we also do quite a bit of work with Responsible Cafes. As Jane said, our whole entire mission as an agency for the last 9 years has been around sustainability and social cause. And just like all the topics that Jo was talking about around the changes with COVID, I just on a personal and professional level could not handle some of the sort of single-use waste systems that were coming back in. So yeah, we also are very proud to be a partner alongside with Responsible Cafes as well. So what we're going to have a look at today is we're going to have a look at what Australians care about the most. We're also going to have look at some good storytelling, how you might consider structuring your communication. We're going to have a quick little glance at a case study, some tips for success, and also telling your story in media. So I'm just going to try and get rid of this if I can. No, I can't. All right. Can you see the full screen, or can you also see? Okay, excellent. So just 6 weeks ago, we launched a brand new project out of the agency. It's called The Power and the Passion. And what we did is we looked at over a 2,000 representative sample of Australians and the top issues across the environment and social causes that they are most passionate about. This report's fully available online. Today, we're just really looking at the passion topics, but there's a whole entire really interesting section that's all about power, where power lies, who has the ability to make change on these different issues and the different things that need to happen if we're going to try and see more of the world that we want to see. So we asked these different generation demographics. So essentially Gen Z, Gen Y, i.e. millennials, of which I am like barely hanging on with my fingernails at that cutoff date, an elder millennial, we're called, Gen X, and also boomers. So these are pretty, it's basically like standardized testing across different representative samples of Australians when we look at research. And we asked them across all of these huge issues and topics, which ones that they were most extremely concerned about. Firstly, I want to point out that even just in those sort of top 12 issues, there is not a lot of data variance actually between the percentage points, and a lot of discussion we've been having with different people in the sector is, they immediately want to see where their issue is and they feel a bit like downtrodden if it's a little bit lower. I'd just say in general, our research showed that Australians are very concerned about a lot of things. There is a huge amount of awareness of the different topics and issues that are at the front of their minds as consumers every day at the moment. But some real call outs. The number one issue is our oceans. So of extremely concerned, 36% of Australians said oceans, followed by climate change and plastic waste. And we also think that this is really interesting because you can see that there's actually interconnectedness between those three issues as well. Plastic waste often ends up as well in our oceans and our waterways. Waterways and oceans are also connected to reef health, which is connected to rising water temperatures, which is connected to climate change. But interestingly, the first 6 issues are all about the environment, which we didn't actually anticipate that would happen. We thought, and these obviously issues were randomized as well in terms of how Australians could select which ones that they were interested in. And then the next 6 are all about people. So this is where we start looking at more of the sort of social justice and human rights-based issues. It then continues on into a range of different issues beyond that. Across concerned, and this is concerned overall, there's a little bit of movement, but not a whole lot. We can see that basically between plastic waste, toxic chemicals, our ocean, loss of habitat, air pollution, and domestic violence, there is a 1% point variance, and that actually continues on through into families in poverty, struggling farmers, and then just another 1% drop in mental health. Interestingly though, in concerned overall, as opposed to extremely concerned, climate change though goes from number 2 all the way down to number 12. So it really also begs the question though of, so what? Because a lot of people that work within consumer brand spaces and things like that wonder, well, should I even be talking about this? Okay, they say that they're concerned about all these issues, but is this going to help me sell my product? Is this going to see more people walking through the door? Is this going to see, if we're looking at a venue, bums on seats, as we say, and meals, being sold, coffees being sold? Well, 4 in 5 Australians said that they want and would support brands and products that are supporting different causes and are making change within social and environmental issues. And I think some of these statistics, these quotes, these are actually actual quotes from people that we conducted the research with. But I think everyone should try to make changes, individuals, business, government. It's got nothing to do with businesses themselves. It's just that we as humans should be trying to do these things. And then there's always the 1 in 5, why the fudge would a business do that? And it's kind of like, cool, that's the one. I can see a love reaction. There's always one. And we welcome them because we're going to try and get them across into the other 4. But also the one who are the naysayers, who are the ones who call out virtue signaling, who call out the hater, brigade sort of things. Like, they also are the people that are going to keep us on our toes and keep us actually really passionate about pushing forward into this space. We love the one. They're also ready to reward the brands that do act. So almost 3 in 5 say they actively look for products and brands that support environmentally causes. Almost 50% said that they purchased a product in the last month because they thought it would help solve an environmental issue. And more than 1 in 5 did it in the last year. So how can you start to talk about the issues that matter to you and your customers and in turn attract their dollars? We do it this way. We try and keep it really simple. We go, what do your customers care about? What does my cafe or my venue or my business care about? And in the middle, you will find that there is a perfect opportunity. So then we also look into how we'd structure the story of what we all care about. So first up, we've got me. So these are things that directly affect me. Then we've got the we. These are the things that are around me in my community. These are the things that I like. These, going to the park, like going to a music festival and things like that. And then there's the us. This is like the biggest issues of the entire world. This is the reef dying. This is climate change. And when we look at how we tell a story, we want to make sure that the largest part of the story is at that top front, the me. It's what affects me as an individual. Then going to the we, and then the smallest part will be the big picture David Attenborough story about climate change. So then if we look at also back to this keep it simple. So let's just say we're looking at plastics. So let's say your community says we're really over single-use plastics and we don't want to use them anymore. And in the cafe, and also the people that work within your cafe say, we love where we work because it's by the river and we love our waterways. So our opportunity there might be to get plastic out of our waterways. So then how does this build up in terms of a story? Well, for the me, it's microplastics end up in my body and I don't like that. For the we, it's like there's litter in our local waterways, our beaches and our parks. We don't like that. For the us, it's plastic waste is devastating our global ecosystem. But how you tell that story, if that's the issue that you want your cafe to basically champion and pick because you've asked your customers, you've also asked your team, you want to make sure that you're really focusing on the me first, then the we, and that the smallest amount of this story and how you're telling it is that bigger issue. And I think it's also really important here to say, we've given just one really quick example of plastic waste. You could apply this method to any issue. For example, your cafe might be in an area in a major city that sees vulnerable communities often needing to access different kinds of food security measures. You might start talking to your customers and they say, you know what, that's the issue that we really care about. Like, yeah, we see it every day and I come here and I buy my food and I feel really bad that there's someone up the street who doesn't have lunch today. You might also talk to your staff and your the people that you work with, and they might say the same. So then you can apply this same story telling method to those different issues to try and basically come up with different solutions of how you might tackle it within your venue. So then I just also wanted to take you through some inspiration around the future food system, which is a really great case study happening down in Melbourne. So I'm not sure how familiar anyone here on the call is. If you are not, it's essentially an incredible living project that is both a home, a restaurant, so a venue, and basically like a giant experiment in how we might be able to create an entire living entity in a structure that is giving us all of our future needs of our food in different ways to come that is completely offset, completely carbon neutral, completely self-sustaining. You can go and look it up online, look it up on Instagram, but it's basically like if there's a top of the tree and the star is on the top, future food system in terms of being an incredible poster child of sustainability is right up there at the moment. Here's a beautiful little link, and you'll all get this as like a takeaway through Joe and Jane, obviously after that, but you can have a look at it. But the things that we like about their storytelling, obviously, and their issue being long-term future food sustainability and security, is in a couple of different ways that they tell this story. And we've just done some little unpacking for you on their Instagram grid as an example. So obviously also noting that like most cafes as well are using Instagram to communicate with their customers, and it's, you know, a really great platform. Facebook obviously as well has sort of equal, you know, storytelling, not as visually beautiful, obviously. So things that we like is they're using Instagram to its full strength to obviously sell their beautiful product. The grid looks beautiful, you can see it. They've got some really nice, simple, like flat lay over the top, you know, imagery. They've laid it all out really nicely. There's a little bit more going on here. They also as well use it to do warts and all storytelling. And what we really like about that is it shows as well that there's authenticity to what's happening within this project. So for example, one of the things that happened is they were taking everyone on their aquaponics journey and the fish all died. It was completely told in this really beautiful way of like, we tried this thing, it was complex, we completely failed, we're really sad about it, we're gonna go back and do it again. And they're constantly showing those things that they're doing throughout their venue as they're trying to try and pilot different things, and they're being really open about it. And then the final part is every dish as well, as we've just sort of said here, has like a me and a we in it. So it also as well, every single dish that they create and put into their grid on Instagram tells a little story that links back to the greater mission of what they're trying to do within this project. So for example, this photo here is a beautiful little experiment that they had on trying to create a jam made of waste and without any of the usual additives. So that's also just a really sort of great example. So the main thing is like using the storytelling platform to its greatest strength, in this case, Instagram, being warts and all with how you tell it, but also trying to find little creative ideas about how you can bring your mission to life with how you tell your story. So tips for storytelling success. There's 3 things to think about. The first is rich content. So stories don't just get created out of nothing. You have to have the content to be able to tell them. One of the best things is to record your data. An example here. Just say you start composting more regularly and creating organic waste composting within your venue. Well, start recording how much you're collecting, start recording how much compost you're creating, even record who you might be giving it to within the community. Tone, which has already been touched on a bit, but be celebratory, you know, be positive about it. Try not to ear bash. We're not here to make people feel guilty, but also be humble in your journey. And that's why I'd encourage you to go and have a look at Future Food System, because they're really humble. You know, we're talking about the most 5-star gold, you know, leaf venue in Australia. And they're really humble about what they're doing. I think also finding an opportunity to champion stories from in and around the venue. So your network, your team, your suppliers, it doesn't have to just be all about you. It could be about your amazing free range, you know, humane small herd pork provider that you've found. And you are doing 1 pork-based dish a week now. You can tell a story about that as well. It doesn't have to just be about what you're doing. And then also this authenticity, always on and from the beginning. If it's in a sweet spot about something you care about and what the people that come to you care about, then you've won half the battle there. Using some creativity is really important. So bringing in a not-for-profit partner, such as Responsible Cafes, or another good partner as well that links to your issue. This idea of a hero dish, which we've sort of talked about a bit today, but it's like, you know, is there something that you could serve your customers that could tell the whole story from end to end about the thing that, you know, is that sweet spot moment? And invite feedback. You know, feedback is a gift. It can help make your storytelling stronger. And if you're an activist brand or venue, maybe ask your competitors to do better by calling them out with you as the position of a high performer. That obviously isn't going to work for tone for everyone, but we're no good unless everyone is doing all of these things most of the time. So we need to try and find ways to get people in on our journey. And then finally, tricky moments. So haters are going to hate, and I strongly encourage you to fundamentally ignore them. A great piece of advice I got very early on in my storytelling career is if no one complains or has anything bad to say about something that you did, then it probably wasn't worth saying because nobody heard you say it in the first place. So don't worry if people don't like everything that you say. You just have to take on the feedback, try and have a conversation. If they're reasonable, if they're not, move on. There are going to be people that are going to call you virtue signalers. You just need to go, that's cool, that's a problem for you. And then finally, don't let progress get in the way of perfection. So I think a lot of venues are out there saying, I don't know how to start because maybe we're doing things to reduce plastic usage in our cafe, but not everything else under the hood is quite perfect and we might expose ourselves. Don't overthink it. Our research shows that Australians are looking for brands and businesses and companies and small enterprises that are doing things in this space. So just start somewhere, make sure that it's real and do it in the right tone. That's very much of like celebration, positivity, and you'll have no problems. And on that note, I'm going to call time on myself. I do have one last slide on media, but people can get it in a takeaway.
Claire, that was amazing. Really fantastic. I mean, I learned something there and I've already seen the research. I really am so grateful for having your input on this because it's so, as you know, like we've both been chipping away in this space for a long time, and just to have that research and that data now is like, yes, come on guys, there's no excuse now, go for it.
Don't hold back. Yeah, now is your time. Yeah.
Right, we're gonna and yeah, thank you for mentioning that's a takeaway. So we'll send that out to everyone, and we're going to be joined now by a panel. So Claire, you can come back. Lauren, if you're there, if you want to join us. Michael from Husky Cup and Kath. So I thought it'd be a really good opportunity to get your brains, because there's so much goodness here today, and really talk about, it's obvious that we need to get the message out there to the community and to cafes to drive this behavior change. But from your experience or viewpoint, what do you think is working and what do you think isn't working? And I'd love to ask you that first, Michael, because you're obviously you're in cafes a lot. You're working on a coffee cup swap system, which there are probably some people that hate it, and there are some people that are loving it. So it'd be really good to get your input on what you think's working, what isn't.
Well, I thought it was interesting how you were saying during the beginning about that kind of dance between, customers being unsure whether they can bring their reusable and cafes being unsure, is it even safe to start using it in their community? And I think that's definitely something that I've come across with the cafes that we work with, is that a lot of people don't realize that reusables are still okay to be used. Like, there seems to be a little bit of disinformation about, are they banned? Are they allowed to be used? Are you allowed to wash them for me? So I think there's a real education piece there that's needed. But I think one of the great things, or the best things a cafe can do, is just to be vocal about the things that they do. So if they're offering reusables, like the posters that responsible cafes have, just being vocal about, yep, we accept these reusables. Whether they do a discount or whether they do a levy, whether they have a mug library or a swap system, just being vocal and proud about it. I think one of the things that can put off the coffee drinkers in that situation is if at the point of ordering a coffee, you hand over that reusable and there's a question like, is this okay? Are we taking them now? And that puts that customer in that really kind of awkward, unsure position, and they never bring the reusable back. So I think it's about, this is what we do it, and just really, maybe even just reminding yourself, what are my workflow here for a reusable? Where do I put it? How do I communicate to the barista? Do I need to reactivate some buttons on the till? There are a few tips there. And also making sure that all the staff have buy-in and are educated about what you're doing as a cafe, why you're doing it, and that they understand it well enough to communicate it quickly to customers. Otherwise, it's just a situation where it's inconsistent amongst your team. So I think buy-in is the last piece of advice I'd get, is get the buy-in from your staff as well.
Lovely. Great tips there. Kath, have you got anything to add on what you think's working, what isn't working on while you've been on your travels?
I just want to extend on what Michael said. It's very much saying what I'm feeling. It's like just owning it, finding out what is the legislation, and bringing that message through and talking to your customers. And as I said, this is the way everything's going. You've seen from all the research and the data, this is what people want. They want you to lead the way for them. So it's like, show up, have all your, as you say, have all your staff trained, have your colourful posters there, like say, we're going to beat COVID together. We're going to fight the reusable movement together. No excuse for single use. COVID's not even an excuse for single use, and have that bright, positive, ownership, authentic message. And yeah, because if you can do this right, you can do all of the next things right that are going to be coming up to work on sustainability wise, because there are going to be other things, as we move forward.
Yeah. And Claire, I know when COVID did hit, you reached out to me and you were just like, what can we do to help? It's a disaster. And thankfully you were amazing and helped us with the contactless pour messaging that was very much kind of coming out, you and I working on that, and also the go topless as well. So is there anything that you can add to what the guys have already pointed out?
I just think change is hard, right? So lots of venues made changes at the beginning of COVID that felt really hard. And I think now as well, there might be some recalcitrance to want to then swap things again. I'm not going to name names. There's a very major cafe, chain here in Sydney that has put all of their bread back into plastic bags where it used to be in paper bags, or you could even like pick it up with the tongs and put it in your own bag. And, I just think it's things like that where we need to keep on as an industry to have those conversations to say, I understand that, you made those changes for these reasons and they were appropriate at the time. Like, are they really appropriate longer term? And talking about impact, but also as well, just giving this beautiful tile that's just come up, which is the Go Topless, like giving consumers really easy ways to have those difficult conversations and call things out. So it also as well, just sort of say, if you're talking to your other fellow customers or people that are coming in and they're saying, I've been down the road and they're doing this XYZ there, there are resources online of like literally like how to have a conversation as a customer with a venue about, pushing them along a bit to try and change it. And I think the more people that are doing that and vocalizing all of those things that they're passionate about, the owners of the different venues are going to start really waking up to, what needs to happen and what needs to change. But I just sort of say, like, change is hard. I totally get it. But, don't flip it all back the other way again. Like, it's like we've all got acres and wells of resilience that we never knew we had, I think, after this experience. So keep pushing.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to answer my own question a little bit as well, because as responsible cafes, what we've always tried to do is take quite a fun and positive, cheeky kind of messaging, lots of puns, thanks to Catfish, and try and kind of lighten this can be quite boring and quite stifling message. Obviously there is some seriousness behind it, but I think, be fun, go out there and talk about, use our topless poster. By all means, you can download it all for free on our website. But I think that's all we've got time for in our panel. Did you guys have anything you wanted to add?
I would just voice what Claire said about behavioural change, and that is the really tough part. I think you can help with change with your purchasing power, but really getting people to change their ways. And I deal with that a lot with a cup exchange, which is a relatively new idea, and there's a lot of behaviour change that's related to that. It's hard work. So I think if a cafe you've got these initiatives and you're not getting the traction that you wanted, don't lose heart. This stuff is hard going, but it's worth it.
Have you had some interesting success stories, Michael, where you've been able to kind of turn cafes around over time, like chipping away at them? Or
yeah, there's a little bit of kind of planting the seed and let it grow. And COVID was a strange one because it actually helped with traction for a little bit because of the fact that swap cups are sanitized on site by the cafe along with their ceramics and glass. And by sanitized, I mean washed at a minimum temperature for a minimum duration. So that was always the case with swap, but suddenly it was an advantage during the COVID, just that sanitation piece. But especially for us, sanitation is a key driver in a lot of cafes' decisions right now. because it's a hot topic and people are concerned and they want to protect their community and their staff.
I mean, it was so hard as well, because we had so many different governments saying different things. I mean, I can't, Queensland basically even banned a contactless pour, which was really devastating. A lot of cafes were actually having on the spot fines for offering a contactless pour, which I think is just crazy. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done in this space, and we've all got to kind of forge ahead and keep doing what we were doing before everything hit. But Jane, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I've got quite a lot I'm going to add and end up with, if that's okay.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much to all of our speakers. I'm going to hand over back to Jane now. I really appreciate you all taking the time. Such great input and so many great brains. So thank you.
So yes, I'll continue, and I'll have my final word. But yes, it's fantastic that I as I said to Joe, I only met you recently, late last year, and I'm just excited to be talking to a network of cafes across Australia, because what I can see is the potential for impact. I think, Kath said, we need to live it, and we all need to live it, absolutely, but we also need to do it, and we need to tell our stories, but we still need to know how to do it. And I suppose that's why when I reached out to Responsible Cafes, as someone who's been an educator and trainer around sustainability and sustainable business for such a long time, I'm really keen to try and help cafes take action on what we're talking about. So all the wonderful resources, and let me share my screen, because I'm going to wrap up here for our last summit and give you and explain where to from here. Now,
good luck with that, Jane.
Yeah, now I'm really, I'm doing it too. So is that full screen? There you go.
There you go.
Okay. So let me recap what we've done so far, so that we're all can see our journey so far. So our first launch summit, our message there was really that we felt that now more than ever before, and the Bravery has really made that very clear today with all their research to show that it's important that you continue your journey to become a responsible cafe. And that's what we spoke about. But our first summit, our first action summit, we were introducing new ways of thinking. And what we wanted to do was, if we have to change our business as usual approach, then we need to think about things differently. So we looked at circular economy thinking, we look at zero waste thinking and design thinking, and we listened to some really interesting speakers. So that was what that was all about. The next two summits were all about getting you to think about how you could secure your supply chain so that for your cafe success. And we delved pretty deeply into our 5 pillars, which was purpose, performance, procurement, planet, and people. And we talked to all sorts of different speakers. We looked at different case studies, saw what people were doing. So what we're trying to lay out here is an actionable steps for you to take. What we've been talking about today is the cup, and as Claire or Kath was saying, it's such a visible action that you can take, and absolutely is, and it's such a great one, and now it's so synonymous with responsible cafes. But I urge you and I encourage you, we have to do more. We have to do so much more, and these are the topics under which we're encouraging you to do it. Today was all about how you share your story so that you can engage your community, whether that's your customers, your suppliers, your staff, everyone who's involved in your cafe. How can you get them on your journey? And that's what we've talked about today, and it's been a fantastic session. But along the way, we've also been giving you out one part of a playbook, and the playbook was all around giving you some very actionable resources, some worksheets, some activity plans, so that you can turn your ideas into steps within your cafes. So the first one was all around ethics and all the design thinking, as I said. Oh, sorry about that, there's a mite in front of me. All the design thinking, as I said, and they're all that's sort of the information that was in our playbook. Our part 2 of our playbook was all around your purpose, your key activities, revenue streams, and these were some of the worksheet that we put within your playbook around your, we've got a business model canvas that we look at. We've got how you tell your story. We're looking at sustainable procurement. There's a lot of information that we've given you out during the course of the events. And then last week we gave you part 3, and that was to help you look at your cafe in terms of its impacts, its inputs, its outputs, and its impacts. across all these different themes. So we really delved into energy efficiency and water efficiency, sustainable materials. We looked at procurement, your impacts, your outputs, all this stuff. It's all within the playbook. So I encourage you to go and have a look at it. What I want to say now is where to from here? Where do we go to from here? And what this screen, there's a lot of information, but let me unpack it for you. The first side of the screen really talks about the Responsible Cafe Network. And you've heard from Joe and Kath and how they've come together to create a network that gives you all these resources for free. The whole idea, they've got a networking map, they've got resources, they've got the Cafe Finder, they've got the Gold Bead rating, they've got this forum like today. This is all the things that they're creating for you to encourage you on your journey. And the whole point of it is to support you and a connected network of responsible and profitable cafes so that you can lead your community towards a regenerative future. And that's the bigger objective. What we were trying to do with these online cafe summits is to inspire you to continue your journey and to give you some really great speakers and discussions, cafe examples, so that you can see what some other cafes are doing and you can follow them and within your own cafe as well. Now, where to from here? What we're talking about and developing now is an online course. We've gathered some great resources along the way during this Cafe Summit, but we've also creating some new resources because the idea is to really, how do you take what we've been talking about and action it within your cafe? So the whole purpose of the online course is to enable cafes to take action across their operations with really in-depth tools and practical worksheets and action plans across all these sort of content that we've been talking about. So you can access that online course at any time, anywhere, and take it through. It's self-paced to take yourself through in a lot more detail than what we've been talking about at the Action Summits. So that's the next step. Our ultimate step on this pathway is Leadership Labs. The ultimate goal is to get some really sort of cafes keen to implement some projects in their cafes and in their communities and help them along the way, to really support them to, and as I said here, to empower cafe entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs to lead their business and their community through positive impact projects. So I've been involved in this leadership training before, not in cafes, but in other sectors, and I've seen this type of pathway work really, really well. So I encourage you to consider this pathway for your cafe, whether you're a cafe owner or if you're a cafe staff member or manager, to think about your cafe journey and where you might fit. As I say, encourage you to use the network. There's lots of resources that you can use there. Joe's putting up all the, she's chomping up and editing all the interviews that we did during our summit, as well as all the cafe interviews that we did. And you can access those for free and have a look at those for some inspiration. If you want to go a little deeper and you want to take yourself through some actions within your cafe, we've got this online course coming and that will help you do it. If you want to do a significant project within your business or your community and you need a little bit more support, some one-on-one support, some mentorship, then I encourage you to join our Leadership Labs. So that's to give you an idea that we have a full pathway plan. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to invite Joe to come back in as well. That's to give a really, that's a big vision. And when I met you, Joe, I had that big vision because I was just so excited about the impact that we could create with your network, with so many cafes who are obviously already on their journey to some degree. If we can help them, I think that would just be incredible. So I'm absolutely have put my hand up and said, I'm here. I want to help. I want to make this a success. So that's how I want to wrap it up. But Joe, you are the responsible cafe person, so I'll let you say the final word.
Oh, Jane, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting up with you via Zoom from Melbourne every Tuesday. I'm going to be at a loss next Tuesday. I'm going to have to call you anyway and have a cup of tea. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thanks to you for your support. We hope, as Jane said, that this is the start of lots of new education and training, because as we've heard today, education is really needed in this space, and the more support that we can give to cafe community and Keen Beans, people in the community that want to make that change, we're here to help them do so. So thank you and have a great rest of the week.
Bye.
Bye.